In this episode, we explore a story where love, hidden truths, and personal identity lead to a tragic outcome. A husband, still adjusting to life as a newlywed, uncovers that his wife is transgender. This revelation sets off a chain of events that ultimately results in a brutal murder, leaving lives broken and forever changed. Join us as we delve into the heart of this tragic tale and uncover the destructive consequences of concealed truths. Ava Collins, 29, was a cherished librarian at Morphew Elementary School in San Diego. Known for her kindness and innovative methods, she dedicated herself to introducing children to LGBT literature. But her passion went beyond just books. Ava believed in helping every student see themselves in the stories they encountered. Ava, originally named Alan, had gone through her own personal journey of self-discovery years earlier, but chose to keep that chapter of her life hidden, even from her new husband, Jason. She believed that what mattered most was who she was now, a loving woman dedicated to her job, her students, and above all, her husband. Ava met Jason Collins, a 32-year-old Marine stationed at Camp Pendleton, in the fall of 2012. They were introduced by mutual friends at a charity event for veterans in San Diego's Gaslamp Quarter. Jason, with his calm and steady demeanor, was immediately drawn to Ava's warm and charismatic personality. They quickly connected over their shared values of helping others, and their relationship grew stronger as they spent more time together. By early 2014, Ava and Jason were married in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. Ava felt as though her life was falling into place. She had her dream job and a loving, supportive husband. But despite her happiness, she still carried the weight of her secret. Although Ava believed in the strength of her love for Jason, she couldn't shake her fear of how he might react to the truth about her past. In the conservative military environment where Jason worked, she knew acceptance wasn't always a given. Their conversations occasionally touched on Jason's strong Christian family values, and Ava worried that revealing her history as a man could shatter everything they had built together. To protect her secret, Ava avoided discussing her life before she met Jason. If he ever asked about her childhood, she would cleverly steer the conversation elsewhere, or provide brief answers, always focusing on their shared future. She even kept details about her job private, only telling him she worked with books, leaving out the deeper aspects of her role and passions. Ava's struggle to conceal her gender identity took an emotional toll on her. While she had confided in a few close friends, including her best friend and former lover, Laura Martinez, hiding the truth from Jason felt like a much heavier burden. In quiet moments alone, Ava often questioned whether her love for Jason could withstand the weight of her past as a man. As much as Ava loved Jason, the fear of losing him haunted her. The constant secrecy began to take a serious emotional toll, and on some nights after a long day at work, she found herself wondering if she would ever feel truly free from the fear that weighed on her. In March 2014, just weeks before her death, Ava was at her happiest, yet also at her most vulnerable. Ava had finally found comfort in her married life, surrounded by people who knew her and accepted her. She held on to the hope that one day she would be able to tell Jason her truth and that he would continue to love her. But deep down, she understood that by keeping her past hidden, she was taking an unimaginable risk, a risk that would ultimately cost her her life. On the morning of March 25, 2014, just after sunrise, Jason Collins made a chilling discovery. He returned to the small apartment he shared with his wife, Ava, in San Diego's vibrant Hillcrest neighborhood. What he found inside would haunt him for the rest of his life. In a state of shock, Jason stumbled backward and dialed 911, his voice trembling as he described the gruesome scene. Within minutes, first responders arrived at the apartment, drawn by its central location in the bustling neighborhood. Police officers and paramedics quickly entered, immediately recognizing the signs of violence. They began to secure the area, careful not to disturb any potential evidence. The officers' initial response indicated that such a brutal attack was rare for this otherwise quiet residential neighborhood. Neighbors reported hearing nothing out of the ordinary the night before and described the couple as peaceful and respectful. One neighbor mentioned that Ava and Jason were private, often seen enjoying weekends together at local spots like Balboa Park or North Park's Thorn Street Brewery. None of these details could shed light on the brutal tragedy that now confronted investigators. As police began collecting evidence, the usually quiet street was filled with a sense of shock and confusion. with residents struggling to comprehend what had happened just a few doors away. Veteran Officer Mark Evans quickly took charge of the investigation, his experience guiding the team's efforts to unravel the mystery. A seasoned investigator with a solid track record, Officer Mark Evans was known for his meticulous, step-by-step approach. As he entered the apartment, he carefully surveyed every corner, observing signs of a violent struggle. The disheveled bedspread, a torn lamp cord, and scattered belongings all suggested a confrontation that had spiraled into something deadly. Faint bloodstains on the bedsheets suggested that Ava had fought back during the attack. The bruising around her neck confirmed that strangulation was likely the cause of death, but other details left investigators with more questions. As Evans and his team examined Ava's body more closely, they noticed unusual scars near her chest and lower abdomen, markings that didn't fit the picture they had initially expected. The scars appeared around Ava's breasts and genital area, and their symmetrical placement caused the detectives to briefly consider the possibility of a ritualistic killing. While rare, such markings had been seen in some high-profile cases and could suggest ritualistic or symbolic acts. Officers proceeded with caution, carefully photographing and documenting the marks for further analysis, ensuring that every detail was preserved for the investigation. Detective Sandra Lee, a skilled forensic specialist called to the scene, quickly noticed the unusual nature of the scars. They were clean and appeared well healed, which struck her as odd. The marks didn't look like injuries from an assault. Instead, they seemed more deliberate, leading her to wonder about their origin. Evans agreed with Sandra's observations and made a mental note to look into Ava's medical history once the forensic evidence was fully collected. With no clear answers emerging, the officers continued to treat the scene as a possible ritualistic or targeted killing, securing the perimeter and meticulously gathering every piece of evidence. Meanwhile, as the investigation unfolded, detectives interviewed Jason Collins in the building's lobby, trying to understand his perspective on the events leading up to the discovery of Ava's body. Jason's shock was palpable, and his responses came in a flat, distant tone. He told investigators that there had been no unusual incidents the night before, mentioning that he and Ava had simply spent a quiet evening at home. While officers took his statement, they couldn't shake the feeling that his detached demeanor was out of place, and they remained cautious, noting every detail of his behavior. Later that day, after obtaining Ava's medical records, the mystery behind the scars was finally explained. The marks were surgical, dating back years before her marriage to Jason. Investigators learned that Ava was a transgender woman, assigned male at birth, and had undergone gender-affirming surgery. This new revelation added a complex layer to the investigation, raising more questions about the circumstances surrounding her death. This revelation shifted the direction of the investigation dramatically. What had initially seemed like a ritualistic crime scene now appeared to be something much more personal and complicated, with Ava's identity playing a central role in the tragedy. Jason Collins, her 32-year-old husband, quickly became the primary suspect, as investigators began to focus on the possibility that her gender identity might have been a key factor in what had happened. Jason Collins, a Marine stationed at Camp Pendleton, was known for his calm demeanor and disciplined approach to life. He had met Ava 2 years earlier at a veterans fundraising event near Hillcrest, where they struck up casual conversations over coffee and pastries. Despite having contrasting interests, they were drawn to each other's differences, finding a unique connection that quickly blossomed into a relationship. Jason's conservative views often clashed with Ava's more liberal ideals, but they appeared to have found common ground through mutual respect. As detectives began their questioning, Jason described his wife as passionate and outgoing, especially when it came to her work as an elementary school librarian. He mentioned that Ava was dedicated to introducing LGBT literature to her students, including books with sexually explicit content, a part of her work that had become well known at her school. Ava's commitment to introducing young people to a wide range of stories was widely appreciated by her colleagues and students. However, it sometimes led to criticism from conservative parents and community members who were concerned about the more explicit content their children might encounter. For Jason, Ava's focus on promoting LGBT and sexual themes in literature wasn't something he fully agreed with. He had told her before that he felt it was too politically driven, especially for an elementary school environment, and this difference in opinion had caused tension between them. When detectives pushed Jason for more details, he confessed that Eva's strong passion made him uncomfortable. It wasn't the first time he had sensed that their values didn't always align, but he had tried to overlook it, choosing to focus on the positive aspects of their relationship. However, this difference in belief stood out to the investigators as a potential motive, especially considering Eva's unknown past. As the questioning went on, the officers revealed to Jason that Eva had once been a man and had transitioned. His response was immediate and strong. Jason's face went pale, and he kept insisting that he had no idea Eva was transgender. "If I had known, I would have divorced her," he said, his voice shaking with a mix of shock and anger. The detectives took note of his reaction, carefully observing him as he spoke. Jason went on to say that he felt betrayed, emphasizing that trust was crucial to him, particularly because of his military background, where honesty and integrity were highly valued. The revelation took Jason by surprise, and he claimed that it made him feel as though their entire marriage had been based on a lie. The detectives carefully noted his words. Observing the strong emotions he displayed, his insistence that he had no knowledge of Eva's gender identity, combined with his conservative views, began to suggest a potential motive to the investigators. The detectives saw in Jason a man who felt deeply betrayed, and they wondered if his discomfort with his wife's LGBTQ advocacy had grown into something more troubling. His repeated claim that he never knew about Eva's transition only raised more questions. Still, it was clear that his emotional reaction and conservative views would be important factors in the investigation. The second suspect was 27-year-old Laura Martinez, a close friend of Eva's and a social worker who devoted her career to helping transgender youth. Laura and Eva's bond went beyond friendship. They had once been romantically involved, sharing a relationship built on deep understanding and mutual respect. Although their romantic relationship had ended, Laura and Eva had stayed close. Laura was one of the few people Eva trusted with the details of her transition and personal challenges. Fiercely protective of Eva, Laura's feelings became more complicated after Eva married Jason. When police brought Laura in for questioning, she was candid about her complex relationship with Eva and, as it turned out, her more recent involvement with Jason. Laura admitted to becoming involved with Jason several months after he and Eva were married. She spoke about the affair with surprising bluntness, telling detectives that she had encouraged the couple to consider an open marriage. She explained that she believed it would benefit everyone, adding that her approach would help improve things for all parties involved. Detectives took note of Laura's direct and unapologetic attitude as she continued. She explained that she thought an open marriage could help ease the growing tension between Eva and Jason, especially since she sensed Jason's discomfort with Eva's work and challenges. According to Laura, allowing more freedom in their relationship could help Eva and Jason broaden their sexual experiences and create a more flexible dynamic. Beneath Laura's suggestion, however, was her own strong desire for intimacy. She wanted to rekindle her sexual relationship with Eva, while also being involved with Jason. Detectives began to question whether her motives were truly as selfless as she claimed. Laura explained that she had tried to convince Eva through casual conversations, presenting her idea as progressive and beneficial, especially for a couple with differing views. With Jason, she took a more direct approach, addressing his frustration with Eva's focus on LGBTQ issues and suggesting an open relationship as a way to ease their growing distance. By subtly planting these ideas, Laura aimed to normalize the concept, all while positioning herself as a supportive friend, when in reality she was just seeking more intimacy. When police questioned Laura about her motives, asking if she had ever suggested the arrangement to Jason for her own benefit, Laura denied trying to manipulate him. She claimed that her only goal was to help the couple explore, in her words, modern relationship possibilities. She admitted to being conflicted, torn between her loyalty to Eva and her attraction to Jason, but framed herself as someone struggling with complicated emotions. The detectives left the interview with a better understanding of Laura's role and her potentially selfish motives. They saw her push for an open marriage, coupled with her secret affair with Jason, as key factors that could have created tension in the couple's relationship and possibly contributed to the events leading to Eva's death. Then, on March 20, 2014, just 5 days after Eva's death, San Diego detectives uncovered a discovery that would shift the course of their investigation. Eva had been assigned male at birth and had undergone gender-affirming surgeries years before meeting Jason. Although Jason had previously denied knowing this, it turned out he was aware of it. This revelation provided detectives with the crucial information they needed to understand both Eva's past and her relationship with Jason. Learning that Eva was transgender helped explain the scars found on her body. Detective Torres and Kako shared the revelation with the lead investigator, who quickly understood its significance. The discovery raised new questions about Jason's reaction to Eva's past, especially whether he had known about her identity before they married or if he found out afterward. Detectives began to question whether this revelation had influenced Jason's actions the night Eva died. Detectives were also struck by the fact that Eva had kept this important part of her life hidden from her husband, which now appeared to be a painful choice made out of fear of rejection, likely influenced by society's deep-seated transphobia. As police delved deeper into Eva's past and Jason's statements, they began to form a theory that Jason's reaction to Eva's identity might have played a key role in her death. The new information also brought Laura Martinez back into the spotlight. Given Laura's close relationship with Eva and her knowledge of Eva's identity, detectives began to wonder if Laura's actions had influenced Jason's suspicions or even made him question Eva's truth. The investigation took on new urgency as detectives worked to understand how each relationship dynamic played a role in the events leading up to that tragic night. What had initially seemed like a domestic dispute was now unfolding into a much more complex case involving personal identity, secrecy, and betrayal. As they continued searching for answers, the detectives shifted their focus to Paul Reed, Jason's close friend and confidant. Paul, 34, had been a long-time political organizer for the Republican Party, known for his strong commitment to campaigning and his deeply conservative beliefs. Like Jason, he often criticized Eva's advocacy for LGBT issues, even expressing concerns to Jason about Eva's influence on local youth through her work as a librarian promoting sexually explicit books. However, as detectives dug further into Paul's life, they uncovered a startling truth that contradicted his public persona. Paul had been secretly involved with several men, keeping his sexual orientation hidden from almost everyone in his life. The first clues about his double life emerged when detectives reviewed his financial records. They found that Paul had racked up considerable debt with multiple male escorts in the San Diego area, with payments going back more than a year. The transactions were frequent and large, leading detectives to suspect that Paul's financial struggles might have added strain to his already complicated relationship with Jason. As they dug deeper, it became clear that Paul's conservative image was a facade, masking a secret life he'd gone to great lengths to hide. During a later interrogation, Paul reluctantly admitted to an incident that showed just how deeply he was involved in Jason's life. Detectives now considered Paul a potential suspect, not just because of his financial secrets and hidden sexual orientation, but also due to his odd, secretive attachment to Jason and his apparent jealousy of Eva. They began to question whether Paul might have resented Eva, feeling she had taken the place in Jason's life that he secretly wanted. Some detectives even speculated that Paul's influence might have pushed Jason's feelings about Eva's identity into a more dangerous direction. Despite Paul's conservative rhetoric, his personal life sharply contradicted the values he publicly espoused. Detectives began to wonder if this internal conflict, coupled with jealousy, could have influenced his actions either directly in Eva's death or by fueling Jason's resentment toward her. They theorized that Paul might have played a role in pushing Jason to confront Eva on the night she was killed, triggering a tragic chain of events. With Paul's confession about drugging Jason and his significant debts to male escorts, investigators became increasingly suspicious of his involvement in the case. While he wasn't arrested right away, police felt they were closing in on a dark secret that could unravel the mystery surrounding Eva's death. In the early hours of March 22, 2014, Jason Collins sat alone in his living room, replaying the events of the past few days over and over in his mind. Jason's feelings toward Ava, his wife of only a few months, had shifted dramatically. Learning that she was a transgender woman had deeply shaken him. Raised in a strict environment with a military background, Jason had always seen the world in black and white. Now, he felt betrayed, confused, and trapped by Ava's secret. A deep sense of betrayal festered within Jason as he convinced himself that Ava had deceived him, keeping a crucial part of herself hidden. By the time he confronted her that night, his anger had reached its breaking point. The confrontation started as a tense argument in their small San Diego apartment. The strangulation marks matched the profile of a strong assailant, someone who would have needed close, personal access to the victim, exactly fitting Jason's build and his access to the apartment. On April 3, 2014, detectives arrested Jason at his apartment. As officers handcuffed him, he looked stunned, his face showing a mix of disbelief and an unsettling calm. As he was arrested, Jason seemed to grasp the full weight of his actions, but he remained silent, refusing to make any statements. The arrest brought a sense of relief to Ava's friends, especially her close friend Laura Martinez, who felt justice was finally being served. Jason's calm demeanor, however, unsettled investigators, leaving them to question whether he felt any remorse for what he had done. The weight of his betrayal and anger had led to the tragic loss of a life, devastating both families in the process. Jason Collins' trial began in January 2016, more than a year and a half after Ava's brutal murder, due to the long wait times for trials in California. His defense attorney, 45-year-old Miles Beck, was an experienced lawyer known for his sharp strategies and skill in handling complex cases. Beck chose a controversial defense strategy, claiming that Jason's violent reaction was fueled by society's deep-seated bias against transgender people. He argued that these negative societal attitudes had contributed to Jason's inability to accept Ava's identity, suggesting that latent transphobia was the root cause of Jason's actions that night. In his opening statements, Beck contended that Jason had acted in a moment of overwhelming confusion and betrayal. Beck portrayed Jason as a conservative man raised with traditional beliefs, arguing that the discovery of Ava's identity had triggered a deep inner conflict and intense rage. He called on expert witnesses, including psychologists, to testify that societal pressures and a lack of understanding about gender identity could drive someone to act irrationally when faced with such a revelation. The defense's strategy was clear to shift the blame away from Jason, framing the murder as a tragic but understandable reaction to Ava's perceived deception. The prosecution, led by 38-year-old Assistant District Attorney Carla Sanchez, strongly rejected the defense's argument. Known for her passionate pursuit of justice, Sanchez argued that Jason's actions were premeditated and rooted in personal prejudices rather than societal influences. She highlighted the careful planning involved in staging the crime scene and pointed out the inconsistencies in Jason's statements to police, casting doubt on his claims of acting in the heat of the moment. This wasn't about society, she stated during her closing arguments. This was about Jason Collins' inability to accept the woman he married. Ava Collins died because of his choice, not society's influence. The jury deliberated for 3 days before returning a guilty verdict of second-degree murder. Jason was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. As the sentence was read, he remained expressionless, maintaining the same detached demeanor he had shown throughout the trial. In a brief statement to the court, Jason later claimed he had been misunderstood, repeating his belief that societal factors had influenced his actions. For Ava's friends and family, the verdict provided a sense of justice, though the defense's focus on transphobia left many unsettled. Laura Martinez, Ava's closest friend, expressed relief that Jason was held accountable, but voiced frustration that Ava's life and identity had been turned into a point of contention during the trial. The sentencing marked the end of a tragic chapter, though it left lingering questions about prejudice, acceptance, and accountability in cases involving gender identity. After Jason Collins' conviction and sentencing in January 2016, life for those involved in the case took unexpected turns. Jason was sent to a high-security prison in Colorado, where he would serve his 25-year sentence without the possibility of parole. During his time in prison, Jason became a controversial figure, frequently making headlines with his public statements about his crime. He often blamed society for his actions, portraying himself as a victim of his upbringing, though few found his excuses convincing. Over the years, Jason's story gradually faded from the media, but the memory of Ava's tragic death and the sensational trial lingered in the public consciousness. Meanwhile, Laura Martinez, Ava's close friend, used the publicity surrounding the case to pivot into a new career. A trained therapist, Laura had always been passionate about helping others navigate complex relationship dynamics, particularly those involving gender and identity. After Ava's death, she began offering counseling services specializing in sex therapy and LGBTQ issues. Her approach was open-minded and compassionate, which resonated with many clients seeking guidance in their personal lives. Laura frequently spoke about how Ava's death inspired her to advocate for a more inclusive, empathetic world where people of all genders could feel safe being themselves. As for Paul Collins, Jason's younger brother, his life changed dramatically after the trial.